The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Second Breakfast podcast. I'm Andy Roth alongside Phil Duvall. Say hi, Phil.
Hi, Andy. I've decided something.
What have you decided?
I'm going to make a change for once in my life. I'm going to feel real good. I'm going to make a difference. I don't remember the rest of the song. I really don't. Gonna make it right. All I know is, Andy, I'm going to start right here with the man in the mirror.
Oh my god, what is the change you're making? Stop just quoting the song.
Oh, there's no change. I just wanted to quote the song. I don't actually want to change anything about myself.
Folks, something that you might not know about Second Breakfast is that I actually live in California now, and I'm actually in the room next to Phil, but we have to shoot it this way because otherwise I will throttle him 7 times a podcast.
There are so many things I'd love to change about myself. Not gonna.
You know what's nice? You know what might be my favorite thing about you, Phil, and this is not being sarcastic, although it will come out as sarcastic, coming on the heels of that comment. You really know yourself. Just very, very well. And I don't mean that sarcastically. I think it is actually my favorite thing about you, because how many people do you know that just don't know themselves? You,
That's true.
Not one of those people.
Thank you, man. You know, honestly, I do. I take that as a great compliment.
Good.
And I think it is one of the things that works for me. It can work against me, as can all great things for great men in history. But I do appreciate self-awareness is good, and it's good, honestly. In all seriousness, it's good in my profession because I can speak honestly about what a doofus I am, and people appreciate it. But I can do it in a way that's not just totally. I understand why I suck, but I also understand why I'm fantastic, and I understand both at the same time.
Sure.
And I think some people think of that as arrogance. I am also arrogant, but that's something else. I think it's really helpful to recognize not only why you suck, but why you're amazing, and recognize that by and large, they're happening at the same time at any given moment.
Oh, totally. I mean, you
but people have a hard
genuine,
time with
right?
that.
No, right, but you have to be genuine, and if you don't... self-deprecation can come across as poor-mouthing, and if you're not genuine in both... towards both poles, as it were, neither one works.
Yeah. But I'll be in the middle of loving myself, and then just like a pure streak of white hot hatred will shoot right through the center of it. I'm like, oh yes, that's right.
Oh, right.
I'm home.
Well, that's all the time we have. Please make another appointment with my with the receptionist on the way out. I think we've made a lot of great strides today.
You made me laugh so hard I almost threw up.
Okay.
I'm so excited for the show today.
Big shoe. Got a really big shoe. Really big shoe.
I say that normally, but we're usually lying. Today is special. Well, let's just break it down for people.
Break it down.
We're gonna talk about what's coming out this weekend, which is whatever. That's the part. I don't really care about that part of the show. Whatever. But we're gonna do it. I'm just kidding, Andy. It's great. Then we're gonna have. I know. Don't worry. I know. We have the return of one of my favorite segments that we do, and it's called Creme de la Creme.
Yes.
The creme de la creme is the cream of the cream. It is when we have our favorite people come on the show and talk about their favorite movies. And today we have a very special guest. My friend Will Clegg is going to come on the show. I'll say more about him later. Yep. But Will Clegg is on the show, and Will and I and Andy, the three of us, we are going to talk about The Shining and a documentary about The Shining, well, really about crazy people, called Room 237.
At the end of the day,
it's not about The Shining.
At the end
so
of the
much
day, you get to watch people's psychoses. Like that's what you're, yeah.
That's right. And we're going to talk about that, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun talking about that. And then when that's done, we have, I think, only one mailbag question.
But it's a good discussion.
It's a mailbag question that Andy and I have been meaning to get to for a month now.
Yes. Bobby Gottfried, set your DVR now. because you're DVRing us because we're on
you-
HGTV or something. I don't know.
I've seen what's on HGTV, and I feel like we should be more better than them.
Sure.
Is what I'm saying.
Sure.
Or like when you get DirecTV, like they'll try to give you a bunch of HD channels. They're all excited that they're HD, except that everything's HD now.
Right.
But they have these HD channels, and some of the programming on there, I'm like, you could just put me on. I mean, I've got to be cheaper for you than whatever that is.
Has to be cheaper. Must be cheaper. Yes.
Right.
That's true. That's fair. It's fair.
All right, man in the mirror. Let's move on.
I'm going to assume you're actually talking to me, even though man in the mirror is yourself.
Nope. I think of you as my man in the mirror. That's why when I say I'm looking at the man in the mirror and I'm asking him to change his ways, I'm literally not going to change until you change, Andy Roth. It's called codependence, and it's brilliant.
I accept everything that you just said.
You are my other half.
Phil, you're my spirit animal.
It's true. There it is.
Yes.
There it is.
Absolutely. So, only 2 releases this weekend, folks, but they're both big. Oh!
Okay.
Oh! No, it's
Andy.
not okay.
Okay,
No,
Andy.
Phil, it's not okay. These movies, folks, these movies are coming out on a little date I like to call November 22nd. Because that's the date.
You and the rest of the world.
Yes, right. I'm not a maverick in this particular way.
Not North Korea. They have a whole different calendar.
No. I call it November Tutuend. No. November 22nd. This is special. Well, there's a sad reason that November 22nd is special. But also, it's my dad's birthday. Happy birthday, Dad.
Oh, Lenny!
Yes.
You, Lenny, will have saved the lives of millions of registered voters. That's for you, Lenny. Happy birthday, Leonard Roth.
Oh, that's fantastic. And coming out on your birthday, Dad, at least one movie that I know you're excited to see. It is not this one, although you might also be excited to see it. I don't know. The new Vince Vaughn comedy, Delivery Man.
Yes.
Are you excited for it?
I am so cautiously optimistic for this.
Me too. I love Vince Vaughn. I don't love all of his movies, certainly, but I just really like him. And I know him almost not at all because I don't watch Parks and Rec yet, although I will. But I love Chris Pratt, and I love Kobe Smulders, and that's all.
Can I say something though? Can I say something? And this is one of those things that's gonna sound condescending.
Please.
Then you actually don't know that you love Chris Pratt.
That's fair.
Because he is funny in everything he's in, or good in everything he's in.
Right.
But the level of funny that he achieves on Parks and Rec is like, and you already know in advance. You're like, oh, I'm gonna end up loving it. But there's a difference between knowing it and walking it. Like, you're gonna just love Chris Pratt.
I believe it.
He manages to take a completely unrealistic character and not let him be obnoxious at all. Like, it's just pure, endearing, and hilarious.
And speaking of people who have that capability, the fact that he is married to Anna Faris, they are like my sneaky favorite.
He's married to Anna Faris?
Like, can we talk about, name another Hollywood actress who is better at taking people who should be totally insufferable and infuriating and making them human and adorable? I think
Anna Faris is that. Like, her as herself, and not just her characters.
Yes,
I'm not going to like her, and then I love her.
Yes.
I have to say it because I'm a straight male. Easy on the eyes, Anna Faris.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Chris Pratt.
Easy on the eyes.
For the gay men and straight women in the audience.
He's not as handsome as she is beautiful, though. Yeah, I'm just saying.
No, but I can't speak to that because I haven't done the necessary market analysis on the Chris Pratt Anna Faris attractiveness spectrum. But I
Go ahead.
feel like that you might actually get some pushback. I feel like some people are like, "Ooh, Chris Pratt."
Sure, I mean, look, sure, that's fine. I'm sure there's a girl who will do that, and that's fine. And those girls are generally called geeks. That's fine.
Sure.
Doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me.
Sure.
Here's the thing about Vince Vaughn. I want so badly. He is so you know what he's like? He's like Ken Griffey Jr. He's so natural. Like,
nice.
his humor, his like Ken Griffey Jr., would just it's not that he didn't work at it, because of course he did, and he was, Griffey hated when people would say he was natural, because he'd be like, what, I don't work at it? It's like, no, buddy, you do work at it. We know you're amazing, but like, there's just something about you that tells us that it's just part of you, like you're gifted in this way. Vince Vaughn's humor and presence is, to me, that kind of natural gift.
I dig that.
And he squanders it quite often.
I dig that too.
And so I want to see him. And this preview looks like it could be super sappy, but it could be fantastic.
Did you see the Internship?
Nope.
Nah, me neither.
I mean, come on, him and Owen Wilson.
I know.
This should not be a problem.
I know.
All right, that's all.
I know. And the other movie coming out on the national holiday known as my dad's birthday, The Hunger Games: Catching Fire. Or, I've been working on this all day. Ka-ching fire. Huh? Huh? Because it's making a lot of money. Huh? You know what I did there?
I got a real big case of the giggles today, Andy. A big case of the giggles.
That's fine. Do you see what I did there? Do you understand the joke that I made?
Ka-ching. Well, you mispronounced catching.
Yes. Right.
But in mispronouncing it,
yes,
you made the sound of a cash register.
Yes.
In the old-timey days, back in cash registers.
The finger thing means the taxes. Yes.
The finger thing means the taxes.
Yes.
Okay. So, and by doing so, you're suggesting that this movie is going to make a lot of money.
Yes.
Andy, that is clever.
I can't turn the comedy machine off, man. The ideas, they just pop. They pop.
Here's to you, Mrs. Rothenson.
Oh, what's amazing is that was terrible, and I'm not sure it's worse than ka-ching. Okay, anyway, so, The Hunger Games, Catching Fire. Very excited for this. It's...
Do I have time to read the books before it comes out?
You probably do, because they're like reading downhill. They go... Yeah. I'm telling you, I recommended the books to a friend, and, there was a process where he had to... he didn't own them, I don't think, so he had to get them, and, 2.5 days later, he was like, well, done with that. On to the next thing I'm reading. So, nice. I mean, they're fairly addictive. So, and Catching Fire is sort of where the story opens up quite a bit. It's really and the advanced press is just really, really good. I may not be able to see it till Thanksgiving, ish, or the day before or after, somewhere around there, but I am very excited for it. Cannot wait. And, I mean, because it's not only Jennifer Lawrence and, the cast of characters, it's the people they've added are like Amanda Plummer and Jeffrey Wright and Philip Seymour Hoffman. Are you kidding me?
Philip Seymour Hoffman in all the movies.
In all the movies. And with that, that's what's coming out this weekend. It's just those two movies.
Can I say something that's got nothing to do with this?
I want you to.
So... It's a little known fact that I'm a Christian. Well, the internet knows this, and you've known that the internet likes to do targeted advertising.
Uh-huh.
So they target me with Christian dating sites. Now, it should target me a little better because I am married with one child and another one on the way. So they could be a little bit better. They've figured out that I believe in Jesus. But anyways, so there's this Christian mingle,
Totally. Yes.
I don't even want to start on the Christian dating sites thing. I don't even want to get into that conversation. It's a whole other. That's I mean, they do have because if I was going to be on a religious dating site as a single person, it would have been JDate. Just so you know, just for the record.
Happy to have you.
But you're out. Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyways, but so literally, I look over in the corner of my computer, and there's a picture of a fairly attractive woman who, let's be honest, is definitely not on this dating site.
Right.
Right. And then it says above it, Jesus is Lord, and then Christian dating. And I was just like...
There's some mixed message in that branding. I mean, there's a little bit of...
I mean, yes, I believe that. I believe Jesus is Lord, but what?
So... A, that's fantastic. B...
So if I don't use that website, am I negating my belief? I clearly don't believe Jesus is Lord because I chose a different dating website.
Yes. Okay. So I don't want to burst your bubble,
Oh, bubble burst.
But I'm not sure that it's because they've targeted you well, because I get the same advertisements.
Well, that
And
makes
it's
me
like,
feel.
what?
Maybe you get it. Maybe you get it because of the single part, and I get it because of the Christian part. I don't know.
Folks, I'm not sure how we got here. I'm probably going to edit out. I'm going to edit this out. What you just
No,
heard me
you
say.
are not,
What you
sir.
just heard me say was welcome to Second Breakfast Podcast. Hunger Games, Delivery Man. That's what's coming out. And away we go.
Okay.
Shall
All
we?
right.
Shall we move on
Can we
to
move?
Will Clegg? Okay, so let's move on to the meat in our second breakfast sandwich. Ah, breakfast sandwich. I like it.
Ooh, that's good.
Yes, Phil. We have a third person.
Oh my gosh, we do. Yeah. Hey, look
Yeah.
at everybody. It's Will Clegg, my friend Will Clegg. Say hi, Will.
I will.
I don't know
Okay.
who this person is, but folks, before I kick it back
And
to
I-
Phil, we have, and I don't want to know. I want to be surprised. So we have this this sadly intermittent segment here on Second Breakfast called Creme de la Creme. And that is where we invite someone on and they get to choose what we talk about, and that is what Mr. Clegg has done. But Phil,
Yeah.
I don't
Who is he?
know.
But who's
You're-
Will Clegg,
you're-
and why should he be on our darn
I don't
show?
know. You're Mr. Clegg. So
Well, let me tell you. First of all, you've had a taco with him, so we're a liar.
Yeah, we met. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I will tell you this. I will tell you this. Let me
I
tell you
am
little
not a
bit-
good person.
Nah, you're great. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about Will Clegg. First of all, yeah, we have a show where we have a creme de la creme is the idea that our favorite people's favorite movies. That's the idea, and I think it's fun. Will Clegg is unabashedly, unquestionably one of my favorite people. I met Will Clegg. I'm talking about you like you're not here. I met Will and Andy back in 2004, and through a friend of all of ours, a friend by the name of T.J. Durham, who Andy and I went to college with. Andy. TJ and Will were making a bunch of short movies, and they decided to make a feature film. They decided they needed a third producer to kind of get certain things going for them and help them. And TJ called me, and I said, I can't be expected to help you raise money because I'm not any good at it, but I can help you with the quality of the film and make sure things happen right.
Sure.
And he said, that's actually what we want. So I said, I'm in. And I flew back to North Carolina and helped, and I got to act in the movie that Will directed, well, that was a lot of fun, and we made the movie, and then we did a couple of more things together, and then I ended up staying in North Carolina for a year and a half because of Will, and became very close with his family. Will is a talented writer and a director. I think he's a phenomenal photographer. He's someone with just a ton of talent and intelligence, and can speak articulately, as you will soon see. Will right now is working on a project in his home state of North Carolina called, I believe it's called Amendment 1. Is that correct, Will?
Well, we're not sure if it's going to be called that
Okay.
or not, but yeah, but it's about Amendment 1.
It's a documentary about Amendment 1, which was the amendment in North Carolina to outlaw same-sex marriage, which of course did pass in North Carolina. And Will and his it did it not?
It did. I would
It
like to
did.
point out right now that the county I voted in went like 81 point something to 19 point something against the amendment. So
Well,
let's hear it for Orange County.
okay.
That's
Yeah.
all I'm gonna say.
I didn't know you lived in Orange County, Andy. I live in Orange County.
I no longer live in Orange County,
Oh, never
but
mind.
I did
So
for
anyway-
that. So you know.
Way to ruin the moment. So, anyways, you could have just gone with it. I will say, but anyways, and
I still
the
live in Orange
documentary.
County.
Well,
I still live in Orange.
the documentary. It's too late. It's too late. The
Dang
magic
it.
is dead. We had a moment to be Lethal Weapon 2. The magic is back, and you went Lethal Weapon 4.
No, the
has
magic
been-
is back, but
No.
it's not back.
And if I'm correct, Will, it's not finished yet, but as far as I understand, you and your partners in crime are working to make a documentary that really explores as many different facets and sides and arguments and conversations around this issue as possible. If I understand correctly, it's all about this, like it's not a polemic, as far as I understand. It's a desire to kind of create an overview and different approaches to this. Is that correct, or am I?
Yeah, the idea is try to make it like a roundtable discussion with
Okay.
you about the matter.
Okay.
A little difficult to actually pull that off in the end because we have our own views that were made a little bit obvious throughout the time we were raising money, because we kind of had to put ourselves out there to raise money to make the film, and then people who disagreed with us were not as likely to come forward and talk to us.
They want to make sure you're going to make their movie if they're going to give you money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we have 70 interviews, and like 50 of them, like 60 of them are probably on one side of the issue and 10 on the other. So
That's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, but that's okay, because we're only probably going to use like 10 of the interviews out of the 70 anyway, so we'll make it work. That's
interesting, and I will. So anyways, the last thing I'll say, Will, before we get started is, Will is a guy who he and I don't always have the same taste, but Will's passion. Will always loves what he loves unabashedly, and whether or not we agree certainly doesn't matter to him one bit. Like, he doesn't care if I like what he likes, or if anyone does, for that matter. He has a very he'll see something and like it and be like, well, then that's what I like, and it's pretty great. So I always enjoy talking to you, Will, about movies. It is long past due that you're welcome to the show, and why don't you tell everyone?
You know what? I'm going to welcome you to the show. I'm going to say, if that's what you're like, and if we've shared a taco, in some states we'd already be married. Not in North Carolina, but
not in North Carolina.
Not in North Carolina.
But yeah,
two things is we did share a taco in New York City in like 2000 and something, 5 maybe.
It was Andy. I had come to visit you. I think you were working at Balthazar, and he was living in Jersey City or Hoboken.
At that time,
I was drunk that entire year.
I remember that.
I
was wondering why you were slurring more than usual.
What? Yeah.
So I was going to say that I think it's actually more fun to talk about movies when we disagree about something about them or whatever, because if we totally agree about them, like in some way, I mean, what's there to talk about, right? So I that's why we usually have pretty spirited conversations, I feel like. Because I learn a lot about, probably learn about a movie that I didn't appreciate for some reason because you liked it so much, and I'll go back and watch it again and like it all the more. So.
I think you're being kind to me. I can't imagine one movie I've changed your mind on. I really... I can't imagine one thing I've changed your mind on, Will Clegg. Now, it's possible I have. I think you're being a generous guest, and I appreciate that. But I'd love for you... I will gently challenge you sometime in the next 24 hours to text me and say, here's a movie or song that you made me change my mind about. I doubt it.
If you want to go to music, I'm going to text you right now, actually.
Well, you can just say it out loud.
Okay. Bob Dylan.
Okay. There you go.
Bob Dylan, Randy Newman,
right.
Bluegrass in general.
All right.
Right there.
Yeah. Phil, you're doing it right.
You know what? I'm a little misty already.
Good night, folks. That'll do it for us.
There's a new. I want to let you know.
Thanks for having me, guys.
There's a new. There's this new interactive video they've put online for Bob Dylan's 50-year-old song, "Like a Rolling Stone," or 45-year-old song. But anyways, it's the interactive. It's very cool. And literally 5 different people have posted it on my Facebook page saying, "Have you seen this yet, Phil Duvall?" And I'm just kind of like, all right, I've done my work. Like people know to check with me when something happens. I may have to stay off Facebook the day Bob Dylan dies, though, because people are probably going to be really obnoxious, like acting like it was my dad or something.
Right.
So, anyways, so I texted or I emailed or I whatevered Will Clegg, old pal, and I said, listen. We do this thing where we talk to people that we love about movies that they love. What do you want to talk about? And Will just goes, anything Stanley Kubrick. That was it. He was like, anything by Stanley Kubrick, I really don't care. And I was like, nope, you've got to care. I need you to care, Will. And Will goes, have you seen Room 237? And I was like, no, but I know what that's about. Let's do it.
I need to pause very, very quickly here and give a shout out. Not that I would have said no. Phil, I don't say no to you on topics, and I certainly would not say no to a guest's topic.
Sure.
But something that made me particularly amenable to this, so folks, we're going to talk about Room 237, which is a documentary about, sort of, The Shining by Stanley Kubrick. And a very good friend of mine and good friend of the podcast, John Strohmeyer. Hello, John. He has been hounding me to watch 237, to watch The Shining again, and for you to do the same, and for us to discuss it. So I am, and all I will say is this, my only preamble to this discussion is this. After rewatching The Shining, which I always love, I own, and the Blu-ray it could not be more beautiful.
Stunning. And
watching Room 237 for the first time, thank God we have a third person here, because Phil, I feel like you and I would just be like, for 45 minutes. Yes. Yeah, and then our heads explode like the people in Scanners. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I thanks, John Strohmeyer, I guess. Thanks, Will Clegg, for making me. No, I am really glad I saw this. I am on record as being bored by most documentaries, and I was not bored for a second of this documentary. Not 1 second. I mean, I was in. But I will ask you, but Will, we've talked a lot about you and not let you talk much. I would love to ask you, why specifically were you interested in talking about Kubrick? And your reaction, any Kubrick movie, which and would be my first question, and then my second would be, then why did you pick this particular The Shining, and then of course Room 237, which people, if you don't know, Room 237 is a documentary about people who have conspiracy theories about what The Shining is really about. It's not a documentary made by Stanley Kubrick, about Stanley Kubrick, for Stanley Kubrick, by anyone in his camp. It's about people who have watched The Shining and have their own theories about what the movie is. So I want to make sure we're clear about that. But The Shining, of course, is a Stanley Kubrick movie. So Will, what was your thinking here?
Well, I think I just watched, Room 237 whenever we talked about doing this, and it reminded me of the experience that I had in college when I wrote my senior thesis paper about 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I had to watch that movie, I don't know, probably 30 times.
Wow.
And do a really close analysis of it. And I loved that movie. I know a lot of people don't love that movie, but then there are some who think it's like the best movie of all time. And I fall, closer to the best movie of all time, but it's not like my favorite, but I do love it. And in watching it and writing it, you do start to develop these insane theories when you watch a movie enough, especially when they're made by someone like Kubrick, who, like, just about everything is extremely intentional, right? And if you watch Room 237 and listen to what these crazy people, because they are crazy people,
yes,
listen to what they're talking about, they believe that literally everything that is on screen is intentional, which, Phil,
how the cans in the background are arranged.
Yes. And some of that stuff, might be totally intentional by him in terms of how the cans are arranged. But did he pick out those cans, or did his art director pick those cans out because they were the right color? That's the kind of stuff that you don't ever know.
And part of the reason you don't know it is because Stanley Kubrick refuses to talk about his craft.
Yes.
Yeah.
He then died. So there's no. Yeah. He didn't get to a certain age and then go, all right, let's talk.
All right, Criterion, I'll do a commentary now.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
I think you're right, Will, and I think the other thing you have a better understanding of this than probably Andy and I did, because you've actually directed one feature and many short films. I remember there was one time, Andy, where basically Will decided he wanted to make a cameo in his own movie, and I was the producer on set, and basically Will had said, can you just be behind camera? I honestly don't remember any of the technical terms anymore. I used to know all of them, but you were basically like, can you be behind the camera?
The shooting
and basically be the person who calls action and cut and watch it and just like let me know and be in charge for this. It was during one of the art show scenes, Will. And
it was the shot. I was like, TJ and I were in the shot,
right?
And the three of us were the producers. So yeah, we were in the shot together.
So I was like, of course, absolutely. And the moment that I got behind the camera, I was like, oh God, like immediately like 1,000 pounds on my shoulders. Right. And I was like trying to look at everything, and there was a bunch of people. It was our biggest day in terms of people. And I was just like, action. And it was like, I was terrified. And I just bring that up because I think about, you have a sense of like how intentional he has the potential to be.
Right. Exactly, and he could be very, very intentional, and I don't doubt that 99% of the details that you see in the movie are his ideas, or at least he was consulted on, and they were intentional by somebody that was working with him. But there's always some things that just happen. Maybe they're we call them happy accidents because they turned out well, or maybe they didn't really turn out great, and we just hope that they fade into the background. But those are the kinds of things that I feel like some of the people in this documentary would seize upon and turn into this deep meaning. Like this one guy goes on and on about how the movie is about the genocide of the Native Americans.
Yes.
I don't know which is crazier, that one or the one about how it's his apology for faking the moon landing footage.
Will, it's the moon landing.
Okay, I want to stop here. I want to stop here and say real quick to all our listeners. One, just know we're going to talk about this movie, both of these movies, as if you've seen them. Although, what we say about Room 237, even if you haven't seen it, we're not spoiling anything.
You're right.
It's an unspoilable. It's
true.
like a McDonald's burger. You could leave it out for 1,000 years and it would never change its ways.
Yes.
But I also, we're going to talk about the movies if you've seen them, so know that.
Yes.
And the answer, Will, and yes, people... I don't know which one's crazier. I really don't. I still think that, even the Nazi stuff, to me, first of all, the moment someone the guy he goes, well, obviously, as a German historian, it was obvious to me that this was about...
Number 42. The number 42.
Was obvious to me that the number 42 was obviously a reference to the Holocaust. And I literally just went, out loud, I went, of course.
Right.
Of course.
Right.
Of course it was. And I was, but the of course was double-edged. One was, oh, of course. But it was also, of course, someone had to have a Nazi conspiracy theory about this.
We're living in the internet age, and what's the rule where you eventually bring up Hitler on a comment?
At some point someone has to bring up Hitler. Clearly the Nazis have to be brought into this. But one of the examples was
Jones. Why does it have to be
there's
Nazis?
the tracking shot of the kid on the big wheel, which all three of those are amazing. But there's one guy who goes crazy about the fact that you see the stained glass from downstairs in the corner of the shot for a split second.
That's what I'm talking about.
And I'm like, I think that really is just a continuity error. I think, or either a continuity error, or I have to tell you, I'm a person. I watched the movie, and there's a bunch of stuff obviously Kubrick made the point of using 2 different colored typewriters. That's not a continuity error,
right?
Because there's no way he would allow that.
Right.
That being said, I never noticed it.
Yeah.
I never did
either.
Yeah.
I think I'm Edward D. Wood Jr.'s I think I'm his ideal audience. Because if you guys have ever seen the movie Ed Wood, actually I don't think Andy has, but if you've ever seen, I apologize.
You showed it to me, or you.
Okay, good.
Strongly
We're in good
recommend
hands.
it. Yeah.
So in Ed Wood, his big line is, "Don't worry, no one will notice." Ed, this is going to be a problem. No. People will be too caught up in the story to notice any of these things.
Yes.
That actually is me. I didn't notice any of this stuff. Because I was too busy being horrified by the film.
Yes.
It's a horrific film.
So, 2 things I have to say. First off, just to sort of frame everything, and actually this should serve to frame both movies. This is, of course, a movie, The Shining, based on a novel by Stephen King. Okay?
Sure. Which these documentarians which these conspiracy theories, only one guy even brings it up.
Yes, that's right.
But anyway, go ahead.
Here is what it's about. It's about alcoholism. Full stop. That's it. We're done. Now, Stephen King puts it through the spooky, occult, creepy, ghost story lens that he does, but that's because it's Stephen King writing it, right? It's about a family's struggle with alcoholism. This is not new. This is not news. This is both the accepted interpretation and the crazy conspiracy theory. That's it. We're done. And also, here's why the moment where I will not be able to do it verbatim, but here's why the moment where the guy says, and that's when I realized that this was not about a hotel. It was about Kubrick apologizing for faking the moon landing. The reason that gets my vote as weirdest is because I may have missed it the first time, So I rewound it. And then I listened to it again. I was like, nope, no, I didn't hear that. I just didn't hear it. I didn't. I listened to it a third time where I was like, okay, I guess this is where the movie is going now.
I think what's interesting to me is I'm not saying that Kubrick didn't fake the moon landing. Although I totally am saying he didn't fake the moon landing. But if he was going to apologize for it, how is this movie an apology for it? Like even if the fact that the Apollo 11 and the 237 and all that is referring to it, even if he's referring to it, how is it an apology? If anything, it would be like, wink, wink. Like,
that's right.
Where's the remorse?
Yeah, it's an inappropriate apology at best.
Right. There needs to be some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Apology. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. Remorse in any way, shape, or form. But I think, Will, it made me realize, it made me realize a lot. I actually think Room 237 did make me appreciate The Shining and Stanley Kubrick more. I actually think it did.
I agree 100%. And I know a lot of the theories that they talk about are totally insane, but if you look at all of them as a whole, excluding the moon landing thing, but the other ones about the genocide of the Native Americans and then the Holocaust, it made me think this movie is maybe kind of about just the 20th century atrocities that we had in the world, and how else can you explain why there was big time spoiler alert, a huge river of blood coming down the hallway in The Shining? What is that about, really?
Well,
it's hard.
Well, I think it is about. To me, it was, and I have to really think about this but I think that Stanley Kubrick, the Coen brothers will make. This is our Western. This is although people say that, but I don't think it's that simple with them. But they make genre pictures, and they don't generally dabble in the same. They don't make mafia movies. They make a movie about the mafia, and then they make a movie about something else. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. They make
but to me, this was Stanley Kubrick's horror movie, and the Indian Burial Ground plays no part in the movie, except that he says it, and except that we know that building something on an Indian burial ground is a horror trope. And I felt like there were a lot of things in this movie that were Stanley Kubrick just literally going here's a horror trope, I'm throwing it in there, and then it existed. And so the visions of I almost feel like he was just the blood thing is terrifying. I almost felt like it was the bare fact of it. Red Rum.
It's how overwhelming it is.
It's the bare fact. Right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, even if you were wrong, it wouldn't, to me, if it was just the bare fact of the elevator opens and there's, what is an elevator? When the elevator opens, we all wonder what's going to be on the other side in our daily lives. When you're at someplace where there's an elevator, is there going to be a pretty lady? Is there going to be the president of the United States? Is Jay-Z going to come out of this thing? What's going to happen?
River of blood?
And so that's the ultimate atrocity, isn't it? Isn't that the ultimate terror? It's the most terrifying thing there is.
Sure.
But I think I hear what you're saying. But do you think that the fact that it's on an Indian burial ground, that's the only thing to me that would lead me to be the genocide of the Indians?
See, I don't think it's really about a specific genocide in that kind of way, but I think that maybe the things that Stanley Kubrick finds horrifying are genocides, for instance. And that's why you get that overarching feeling of the little clues and the number 42. Those could be little clues that's what is so horrifying about the world in general to him. He did only make one horror movie. It's his one chance to, really get it out there. What scares him the most? I don't know. It's really interesting to watch a movie like that.
Well, and apparently
237. And see just. So I read about it a little bit more because I watched that film twice, right? And then I read about as much as I could. And apparently they only used about 10% of the interviews that they recorded.
Oh man. Well, that makes
That's
sense.
how many conspiracy theories there are
Right.
about what's going on in just this one particular movie.
Yeah.
And I just think that's amazing, whether or not any of it has anything to do with reality or not, you know?
And again, I think part of the reason it works is because of the intentionality of Kubrick, his reputation, his willingness to be misunderstood, and frankly, he's a singular filmmaker, and he's not my favorite, but he makes movies that are so utterly what he wants them to be, or as close as he can get, and he was able to do it in a way that, I mean, he was able to get away with it. You know, he was able to spend 3 years on this movie. You know what I mean? I mean, like Coppola spent 3 years on Apocalypse Now, but it almost killed him. Like, and it freaked everybody out, and no one knew what to do. And frankly, he never made anything remotely as good after that. Whereas Kubrick would routinely spend forever on a movie and just be like, "This is my process. Deal with it." You know?
Yeah, he went, 6-7 years between movies often. And no
one made. I mean, and that was just the deal. An interesting thing that I read that I would want to throw out there is, you mentioned, I love what you just said, Will. You said this is his only horror movie. This is our only clue into what horrifies him. Although, and I think really, there is a horrific quality to every movie of his that I've seen.
Sure.
I mean, Dr. Strangelove ends with the annihilation of the world.
Yeah,
the extinction of humanity.
Yeah.
But that's a horrific idea. I mean, that's horrific. I mean, it's the darkest comedy in the history of the world, in my opinion. And then Clockwork Orange, again, which I consider to be actually a comedy, is a very dark comedy, and it is horrific in many aspects. 2001, I need to watch again before I make any comment. But obviously, the very idea of what Hal represents is horrific. I mean, that's, and the sort of perfection, the horror of perfection. You know what I mean? Like, of the perfected being. But I think if we're going to talk about what's horrific about The Shining, it might be something very simple, which is Kubrick, when you do read about him, was apparently, according to all who knew him, a devoted family man. And the reason that he wanted to film everything in England was not at all that he hated America, was literally just that's where he made his home, and he was able to do whatever he wanted to do, and what he wanted to do was be near his family while he worked. And the actual horror of The Shining is the destruction of the family. I mean, what is more simple than a guy going crazy and killing his family? That is the destruction of the family.
Well,
and Kubrick was a guy who completely and utterly devoted himself to his work. So you could see how this movie would be perfect.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and I hate to keep going to this well, Phil, but we've talked a lot about things that are scary and things that are scary that aren't necessarily horror movies, but in some sense, so many of the things that we experience in movies or in any art form is some sort of facet of the unexpected or the unknown. And that works for drama, it works for comedy, and it certainly works for horror. And Will, I don't know if you've heard this, but when History of Violence came out, David Cronenberg was asked, "What scares you?" And he said, "I go to school to pick up my kids and they're not there." And there's a lot in that statement. And because it's the fear of a parent, it's the fear of an institution that we trust, in this case a school, that is in loco parentis, it is designed to, if nothing else, not destroy your children. And that doesn't happen. And this is yes, there's isolation built in, but when would a family be more safe? When it can do nothing but be together, right?
Yeah.
How is that not safe? I mean, something might, obviously, nature might come into play here, but in terms of, it's a big building. Snow is not going to collapse this building. And so there is no reason that this family would not be safe. And
yet the implication from the beginning is this family being alone together is what will kill it.
yes, that's right.
And that's the thing to be feared.
And that is
That's terrifying to me.
I don't have a family in the way that you do, Phil, and it's terrifying to me.
Well, I mean, is there anything scarier in the actual movie? Anything more terrifying? No. I mean, the end, the climax is scary. I mean, it's really well done, and I mean, Nicholson's descent into madness is, in my opinion, one of the most amazing things that's ever been captured on film.
Yeah.
But what might actually be the scariest scene in the movie is the little boy, Danny, going upstairs and finding his dad sitting in a daze in front of the bed, and then being afraid of his dad but still walking over to him and then saying to his dad, "Are you going to hurt me and Mommy?"
Yeah.
And the fact that the dad doesn't immediately say no. Like, Jack doesn't actually go, "Of course not." You know? He's like, first of all, he pauses for way too long.
Way too long.
And then his answer is something along the lines, "Come sit on my lap." Like, come closer to me before I even answer.
Right.
And then he asks, "Why would you say that?" Which is like still not answering the question.
Your Honor, this is not responsive.
My boy, I love you. Of course not. And it's just. Oh, anyway.
So there are two things. There are two things I want to talk about, and we don't have to talk about them back to back. They're sort of big things, but I would love to get your take on this, Will, or on these things. First, the use of color in this movie. Unless I am mistaken, literally every new room someone goes into is a different color. It's a different dominant color. Even in the apartment, which ostensibly should be sort of a piece, it is like they will pass into a room and the lighting will be different, or the actual paint on the walls is a new color. And I do not want to get into room 237 territory here. I am not saying it means anything at all other than Kubrick going, "Oh, that'll look cool." But I'm certainly not saying that's it, because what I'm saying is that Stanley Kubrick is smarter than me. But I just found it fascinating, and I found it gorgeous, and I found it, if this makes any sense at all, I found it moving without knowing why it was moving me and in what direction it was moving me. It just really affected me.
Well, I hadn't really thought about that, but I think it probably just about every room, every scene is a new color every time, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of disorienting, which fits into the theme of the one thing that's in room 237 that I had read a lot about before that I thought was really interesting, that they kept talking about, was the impossible window in that office.
Yeah.
Right? And that is something that I do think is intentional, because I think Kubrick understood very well how the floor plan of the set was going to look, and that office couldn't possibly have a window.
Right.
And there are other inconsistencies too in the floor plan, and I think that's all to disorient you.
Yeah.
And to make you feel unsafe, and you don't really know what's going to be around any given corner, because it ultimately is a ghost story, and sometimes you turn the corner and there's two creepy little twins there. And
but it really is. You said it. I think that it's not a scary movie in the sense of the way that The Exorcist is scary, or the way that Halloween is scary, the movie Halloween.
Yeah.
But it is the most unsettling movie that I have ever. I think
it's the scariest movie I have ever seen, and that may have something to do with the fact that I first saw it when I was 12 or 13.
Awesome.
Way too young to watch Shining.
Yeah.
Who are listening to this.
So I shouldn't have watched it with my 2-year-old daughter the other day. That was a bad idea.
So
that should do something to counteract that somehow. Yeah.
So clearly,
folks, what would counteract that?
If you're
here at Disneyland, I don't know.
If you're watching us right now, chances are, because I don't want to speak for you, so I'll just say Phil and myself are freaks. We're weirdos, right? We clearly, stop me if you have thought this before. We think a little too much about movies, all right? So when we say things like the geography and the floor plan will unsettle you, it's not like you watch a movie necessarily I'll just say flat out, Phil, you said you were Ed Wood's favorite, ideal
I'm his
audience
ideal
member.
audience. It's true.
Yeah, it took me a second to remember what you guys were talking about with the impossible window. I remember it, but wait, how was it impossible? Why was it impossible?
I didn't notice that it was impossible when I
You
watched it.
don't register it necessarily. Most people don't. I certainly didn't register it when I watched the movie, and yet your skin's just like a little itchy.
I think this is the brilliance of Kubrick in this movie particularly. Is he has created a movie where, for the most part, nothing happens. Like, only one guy actually gets killed, and it's not who you think it's going to be.
No, but he does get he does get the hell killed out of him. I mean,
sure, and he gets killed in a classic horror way.
Also true.
But because I think Kubrick is working with horror themes and tropes, which I think is fantastic. But it is a movie that just feels utterly unsettling and terrifying.
Yes.
It feels horrific.
Yep.
And I remember when it ended, I actually said out loud, that movie is actually on some level totally incoherent, but not unintentionally.
Right.
Like, it really, there are things that happen, and they literally happen for no reason. Literally, I mean, when Shelley Duvall finally loses her like marbles, and
yep.
and just sees the dog-faced man or the man in the dog suit or something.
That's the worst part of the movie.
Right.
Every time I see that, I almost have to look away because I don't know what's happening and it scares me so much.
Right.
But it's literally.
Today.
But there are things where you can say this is unsettling, or this is trying to do this. You got nothing for that.
No,
you got nothing for that.
You're just
I read
done.
something today that described that scene as a man in a bear suit being untoward with a man in a tuxedo.
Yes, that's accurate.
It's a fine description. However, it doesn't begin to describe how absolutely terrifying it is, even though it's on screen for maybe 1 second.
Yeah.
By the way, that 1 second of film is like if you tried to explain what Donnie Darko tries to do in 2 hours, that movie does in 5 seconds.
Oh, bless you, Phil. Thank you. Now I have something to say to everyone who's like, you don't like Donnie Darko?
There you go. You're welcome. I don't dislike it, but I don't dislike it. That is. But anyways,
Yeah.
It is. But that is an example. It is Kubrick does things intentionally incoherent. I think he is intentionally incoherent, which is not the same as being bad. Like, he's good. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But it is. There are things that happen for no reason other than he is chronicling madness. And I think what Ebert points out is that this is a movie where it's possible that no one is sane.
Nice.
And it even to the degree where we're implicated because we're not sure which room goes where.
Right.
And it makes no sense that Jack or John, whatever his name is in the movie, is let out of the meat locker.
That's the only thing that doesn't make any sense at all, right?
Unless it's supernatural.
Or unless Danny let him out. That's what they said. They said that in room 237. I never thought about that.
Right.
But
for the fact that they all have the same vision.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I love about this is that I
movie is
never
to make you miserable.
And I never thought,
Am I wrong?
No, I never thought about the colors, because I never noticed the color in the way that I did this time. But of course I did, right? That's the deal. Like, you notice it, like you notice the impossible window. But I didn't notice it the way I didn't notice the color and the color shifts and the breaks in the color like I did this time. But it definitely will. I think that's really well said. I think it really plays into that. It's unsettling, Phil, as you said. It's chronicling madness, and I mean, in the most sort of facile way, like the pinwheels of color in like old cartoons to show somebody's going crazy, and it's kind of like that, but stretched out over 2 hours.
Pinwheels of color in 2001. That's fine too.
That's fair.
Well, also, you go to a hotel and you expect everything to look the same, right? Every floor should look the same.
Right.
Every room should look the same. And when it doesn't, that's just unsettling.
Yeah.
You know, why doesn't it look the same?
That's
But
well
so
said,
I
too.
mean, I think there's something. I think it's one of the boldest movies I've ever seen
Yeah.
someone brilliant make. Partially because he's just willing to do all that. I mean, it's. I think one of the reasons I've never actually been able to connect emotionally with Kubrick, aside from the fact that I think he's a fairly cerebral filmmaker, is actually that he's at heart essentially an experimental filmmaker.
That's what I wrote my paper about, actually.
Oh, really? Is that right?
College. Yeah, I mean, I
Awesome.
was basically talking about how 2001 was really just an art house movie that happened to be a science fiction art house movie, but it became this phenomenon. But if it was made today, you know, I mean, we can think about it as like it would be like at 3 theaters in New York and 1 in LA,
Right.
and run for 2 weeks.
Well,
and
they
would
did
be
that, right? That was the remake, and I guess the original too. But in terms of movies made today, that was the George Clooney Solaris movie, right? Like that was an art house movie that was like, it's a science fiction movie with George Clooney. Why was it out of theaters in a week?
The difference being that Kubrick's movies, the last 3 movies before that, had already been nominated for Best Film. Although I guess Solaris had been Soderbergh, but I mean,
right,
and who'd been nominated or won by that point, I'm not sure. But anyways, I mean,
but
Soderbergh
your
was
point is
big
still
deal.
well taken. That's true.
It is crazy. It is crazy. I mean, I think it's part of the reason he got to he got the latitude that he got. I have a question for y'all.
Shoot.
Are there any theories that the movie puts forward, that the documentary Room 237 puts forward, that you actually bought at all, even a little?
No.
I had one. I'm asking because I had one.
I look forward to hearing Will's answer. I look forward to hearing which theory it was for you, Phil. No.
Okay.
At the expense of sounding like a total crazy person.
You could not have started this better.
Okay. There was a time in my life when I did not believe that we'd ever landed on the moon.
Okay.
I do believe that we've landed on the moon now, but
do you believe the video of it is fake?
Right. That was my favorite
That's what I was
parsing,
getting.
right?
I
No,
think
we
that
totally
maybe
landed on the
it
moon.
could have been faked.
Right.
And if it was faked by Stanley Kubrick, then I find it really difficult to believe that he put all these little clues into The Shining to apologize for it or let people know. That seems to me to be
12
far-fetched.
years later.
But I found out later on that he did actually direct a video of moon footage, moon landing footage, because they couldn't really film it up there for whatever reason. I wouldn't be surprised. And I think this movie pushed me a little further in that direction.
All right. Well, okay. I mean, you don't. For some reason, this is one of those conspiracy theories that people are allowed to believe in. Like, it drives me. Like, I don't. But it's like it drives me mad. But it's not like the 9/11 was an inside job people, because those people deserve to be rounded up and sent off to somewhere where I never have to see them again. But this one doesn't hurt anyone. It's innocuous. I mean,
Shortly
it makes you a
before we
communist. It makes you a communist. But other than that,
Shortly before we met, I could not have possibly been convinced that we'd ever gone to the moon. I don't know at what point I turned the corner.
I am so
and I stopped
glad it
staring
was.
at it, and then I realized that,
I'm so glad it's shortly before. I'm glad it's before we met.
like 1 or 2 years before, if we'd had this conversation, we probably would have never spoken again.
I think it's clear. We figured out, by the way, Will and I figured out, Andy, that if we had met in high school, we never would have been friends. Not only would we not have been friends in high school, but our friendship later would have been impossible.
Awesome.
Impossible.
It would have done irreparable harm.
I mean,
Instead, Phil married me and my wife.
Yeah, I officiated at Will and Carrie's wedding, and was easily one of the highlight of my year, up to the point that I'm going to have a kid. I'm going to have a kid soon, and that's gonna trump it. But and my daughter still talks about that wedding. Actually, it was a special thing. But it's true. If I had known that about you, okay. Are you all ready for the theory that was brought forward that I actually believe?
Phil, I think my answer to that question has to be no, but I don't have a choice.
No, actually, it's the one guy who actually talked about the book. And he pointed out that in the book, I have never read, in the book, King makes a point of talking about their red VW bug.
Oh yeah, I believe it's 100%.
And that in the movie, not only do they not have a red bug, which is the easiest thing to do, just give them a red bug like the book says. Right. They give them a yellow bug, and then drive past an accident wherein a red bug is smashed, and that is Kubrick's basically peeing all over the book's leg, saying,
"Okay, yes,
I own this."
Yeah, no, that's.
And I never would have thought. I mean, obviously, I'd never read the book, but it isn't. Look, something has to be made of the fact that this was a book, and Kubrick chose this book. He almost always chose source material. I'd love someday for us to talk about the fact that he chose to make the American version of Clockwork Orange, because Clockwork Orange was written by Anthony Burgess, and when in the UK, and when they published it in America, they got rid of the last chapter.
Yes.
And that's the version that Kubrick, who was living in England at the time, chose to make.
Yeah.
And then the movie got banned in England.
I mean, it's just
very like it's like it's like watching the movie Fearless and stopping before he eats the strawberry.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
It is
right.
The last chapter of this book changes everything that came before it. Not in a like a spooky like an M. Night Shyamalan way, but like
changes the meaning of the film.
The entire
of the book.
Yes.
And so obviously Kubrick has a history of doing this, and if you know that he's buying the rights to your movie, you should just deal with it. And I'm not going to get into we didn't get into today, and we don't need to get into today the whole Stephen King's book, because we're really talking about the conspiracy theory stuff. But that made sense. That was the thing where I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense to me, and never knew about it until now. Thank you.
Can I respond to that? Because I'm with the two of you. I totally believe it. The reason I answered the way I did was because
you thought I was going to say that the movie was about minotaurs and
no. Right. I actually blocked that theory out of my head because it wasn't crazy.
Right. Well, the Minotaur one where the woman was like, if you look at the poster, it's very clearly not a skier. It's a Minotaur. And I'm like, she's like, he's not holding ski poles. I'm like, yes, he is!
He's holding ski poles!
He's very clearly holding ski poles, and it says ski! This movie is one of the most perplexing, disturbing, difficult things that I have ever seen, and I want to watch it again right now.
Which one are you talking about?
The Shining.
I never need to see Room 237 again.
Yeah, I don't need to see Room 237 again. I'm glad I did, though.
Me too.
I'm glad I saw it.
But don't you kind of wish that they made a Room 237 for like every movie that you really, really love? Because that's why I wanted to talk about those two movies, because I just think it's so interesting to watch something like that, even if most of it is total nonsense.
That's the thing. If you read Chuck Klosterman's article on Grantland, there's about Room 237, which I actually read that article when it came out, and then immediately put it out of my mind, and then and then read it again, and I was like, oh, I remember this, because I remember him saying it's the best, but I remember him talking about the idea of immersion criticism, and he talks about this idea of how to critique movies that only can exist if you've seen something a billion times. And the idea of trying to figure out what somebody really meant. And what I appreciate about that actually is, as messed up as it at least gives... One problem with postmodern criticism is it creates this sense where it goes, it doesn't really matter what the author thinks he meant. I'll decide what the author meant. Which I think is like... How do I put this? Stupid. We can come up with our own theories, but we could very well be wrong.
Sure.
And we could also be like, well, even if you don't see this, I mean, like, the symbolism is there, and we could have that conversation. But I appreciate the fealty to Kubrick and the utter belief in his genius that people thought that he was encoding things like this, if that makes sense. At least they're being loyal to him in their insanity. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, it's respectful to Kubrick to think that he's capable of doing this.
Yeah, that's well said.
Sure.
Whereas I think postmodern criticism can somehow take someone's amazing work and be like, doesn't really matter what they think they made. I'll decide what it means. And it's like, Well, it does kind of matter what they think. They're the ones who spent all the time making it. Like, it does matter a little bit. I don't know if that makes any sense, what I just said.
Yeah, I think it does. I think the counter to that, though, is that 100 years from now, when the creator is gone, all that's left is the text or what's on screen if it's a film, and that's maybe all that matters.
Well, that's the
eventually.
benefit. Well, that's the benefit. Now, see, that's why all the specials and extras and added things that are on Blu-ray editions of films don't matter much to me, but they'll be great 100 years from now. Right. I don't watch that crap. Although I now want to go back and watch every single extra on The Shining. Every single one.
Can I
right?
want to watch everything about it.
I want to talk about one more thing, and then I can be done. But I think it actually plays into this feeling of incoherence and insanity and madness. The performances, and I don't want to talk about Nicholson, although we could talk about him for days. I don't want to talk about Shelley Duvall, we could talk about him for days. I don't even want to talk about, like, Scatman Crothers, although I will say this.
His posters are amazing.
If your name is Scatman Crothers, that should always be your name. His name should not be Dick Halloran in this movie. This is our cook. This is our chef.
I feel the same way. I feel the same way about Slim Pickens and Dr. Strangelove.
Amen. But I want to talk about the kid, because the kid who plays Danny, and I'm pretty comfortable saying this, is terrible in this movie. But that doesn't stop him from being completely effective within the movie. He is everything I hate about child performances that I hate. He is cutesy, he is overdone, and yet it fits into this weird, slightly off world that Kubrick creates.
I would say almost everything you said, not about him, but about Shelley Duvall's performance.
That's fine. I'm on board with that.
And I don't think it's a bad performance. Actually, I think it's exactly what it needs to be.
That's a better way of saying it, but I'm on board with that. I agree with you about Shelley Duvall.
I don't know, Will. What do you think about the performances in this movie besides Jack Nicholson?
Well, yeah, I never really loved Shelley Duvall's performance in it. It kind of grew on me. I mean, I've seen the movie a dozen times probably.
Sure.
And she definitely grew on me. I've never thought that about the kid playing Danny.
I never thought about that either. That's interesting. I've never thought.
But drove me up a wall, but I loved being driven up the wall. Weird. It was weird.
I'm trying to think of when was he being cutesy though?
Yeah, seriously.
Cutesy's the wrong word because it's a creepy movie. But I didn't. I felt like I was watching a kid being told to play creepy. Not.
That's interesting, because if you read about the movie and the making of the movie, he didn't know he was in a horror film until 2 or 3 years after the fact.
Yeah, they tried to shield him.
Kubrick did everything he could to make the kid feel like he was just in a movie, which is amazing to me.
That is amazing. Here's the deal: we can both be right. I would not put it past Kubrick to have a situation where we're both right. You know what I mean?
I hate situations where we're both right, Andy. But
I know. I know.
I don't know that I've never really even considered his performance, to be totally honest with you, because it's not that big a part of the film in the end. But I don't know. I've never really thought about it that deeply. But I guess thinking about it now, he does seem pretty detached, and a lot of his line readings are, kind of without emotion at all. But if you consider that the character is supposed to have been abused at some point, that might make sense. But I don't know. Now I have to watch the movie again, I guess.
I gotta ask you
on Danny.
I gotta ask you both. Is the scene where Shelley Duvall's character finds what Jack's been working on, and all the way from the beginning of that scene till the end of it when she has the bat and is at the top of the stairs, should that be in the conversation for one of the greatest scenes in film history? Should it be in the conversation for one of the greatest scenes in horror film history? And is it not one of the greatest moments in acting history for Jack Nicholson? These are all loaded questions. Obviously, you know my answer by me asking the question, but I just want to say it out loud and see what you think.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's one of the. I mean, it's right up there for top horror film scenes, I think, ever. And for Jack Nicholson scenes, I might put it right at the very top.
It's
Shelley
fearless.
Duvall scene is probably top two, but that's just because she's not very good. But you know,
I like her in Annie Hall, but yes.
I love her in Popeye, but that's just I love her in Popeye, so that's just me. But I can't. What he does, the range of emotion that he goes through in that, and it is perfectly plausible. And the way that and it all happens in such a way that you don't realize that I mean, it's like the length of the shot and the technicality of how the shot's done. Like, I don't know. It's masterful and it's terrifying and it's when the movie just breaks. It's the moment when the movie just breaks.
Yeah.
It's the moment when the movie just goes. From here on out, we're into full-on horror film chase sequence.
Yeah.
Terror. From here on out.
I actually don't love that scene. I'm not all that impressed by it.
Just stop. You're not.
Of course, I'm kidding. What? I just want to mess with you. Come on. It's
I know.
It's perfect. It is perfect.
It was one of those. I just want to say that it is a funny movie to think about as one of the greatest performances in history of film. Because it was not a movie that was given any credit, and Jack Nicholson was not even remotely nominated in any way, shape, or form. And in retrospect, it is absolutely one of the greatest performances ever put on film. I mean, just absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
has any horror movie really ever been, recognized for the acting, though? I wonder. I mean, I can't think of one.
That's a very good question.
In the moment,
most
I can't
of them, to be fair, should not be. But,
right, but like people now talk about the performances in, for example, The Exorcist, and people now talk about the performances in The Omen.
Well, but that's troubling. But I will say this. I will say this. Everyone says Silence of the Lambs is a horror movie, and Hannibal Lecter won best. I mean, Anthony Hopkins won the best actor.
Yeah, that's more of a thriller, I think. Though.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But that's as close as you're going to get. But I mean, then again, you could call The Shining a thriller, but in reality, the reason it's a horror is because Kubrick set out to make a horror film.
That's right. I think
the only other thing I want to say about this movie, and then I'm done, and I mean, it goes to my love of Jack Nicholson, who is my favorite actor, and this movie is one of the reasons why. But I think the actor that I feel most, and this, it's unfortunate that I'm saying this about this movie, but it's true. One of the actors that I feel the most kinship with when I was an actor. Like, I'm not saying I was anywhere near in his league, but in terms of what I would have wanted to be able to accomplish, I loved watching De Niro. I love watching De Niro. I love watching Jimmy Stewart. I love it. I love watching Cary Grant now. I love watching William Holden. I love watching Christian Bale. I love watching these guys. Matthew McConaughey now is getting into this interesting territory but I've never wanted to be any of them the way I would have loved to have been the kind of actor Jack Nicholson was. He is, when I wasn't wanting to be an actor, he was my hero, and this movie is an example of why.
Yeah.
This is a performance.
Precisely how I feel about.
You cut out.
Exactly.
You cut out. Right
It's precisely how you feel about what?
About Stanley Kubrick.
Awesome.
And I love that about you.
Yeah.
And this is what I want to say. Will, then this is you're setting up, and this proves why I love working with you and why I would have loved to have made more stuff with you. But I think in another life perhaps. But I think what I love. I read this quote by Stephen King about this movie. He had a big problem with the fact that in his interactions with Kubrick as they were making it, he realized that Stanley Kubrick didn't really have a belief in the supernatural. And obviously, and frankly, I think Stephen King was saying by fact that both of what Stephen King always writes about, but also by the fact that he made this comment, Stephen King has a belief in the supernatural. He may have a problem with organized religion, but he doesn't have a problem with the idea of the supernatural. And he said his problem in the end was that he got the sense that Kubrick thought too much and felt too little. And I don't know if that's true, although if it's true, you could see it being true about Stanley Kubrick when you look at his career. But I will say this. If it's true, then Jack Nicholson is his ultimate foil. Not that he doesn't think, because he clearly thinks, but he's such a feeling actor. He's such an emotional actor. And frankly, I feel like he may be the greatest counterpart to Kubrick as a director. I can't think of an actor who brought as much to it. Like, I think the Kubrick-Nicholson combination, he's such an emotional, feeling actor, and Kubrick is such a cerebral director that them working together could have been a disaster, and instead it's perfect. Does that make any sense, Will?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I know you said earlier, before we started recording, sorry, that that you had not yet seen Eyes Wide Shut.
Yes.
And that is not a perfect movie by any stretch, but I think what you're describing is similar in the dynamic between Kubrick and Tom Cruise, too. I don't love Tom Cruise, but his performance in that movie I really enjoyed, and I think it's similar. Like, it's really full of emotion. But like most Kubrick films, there's this air of like, what the emotion's kind of been sucked out of every scene in some way.
And that's what I love about The Shining is emotion is sucked out of every scene and yet gets like shoved back into it.
Yeah.
Like, because it can't help but be, because it's madness and because of the way that Nicholson goes mad. His madness is full of emotion. When he's sane, he's almost emotionless. In a way that's almost disdainful for humanity, but borders that line. Borders the borderline. But he's so emotionless, and when he goes mad, it's his emotion that comes through. I don't know, man. But anyways, listen, we could talk about this movie forever and a day, and and still somehow not be as crazy as the people in room 237.
Right? They do it in like 2 hours. It's unbelievable.
Okay, I just say one more thing about room 237.
Please.
I've been through this up a lot earlier.
Please.
They never show the people that are being interviewed.
Thank God.
When have you ever seen a movie?
I know.
Exactly, right?
I
if
thought
they did, then you'd be like, oh my, why is there so many cats in that apartment? But I've never seen a documentary like that where they never show the people that they're doing. I think that is really curious. And I don't.
Yeah.
A brilliantly executed documentary, and
Yes.
that was one of the reasons why.
Yes.
I think that works. Because who they are doesn't matter compared to. Anyways,
what they're saying. Yeah.
I don't want to get too much into like
what you said. I like what you said. Oh my
filmmaking
gosh,
conventions.
how many cats are in that room?
Right?
I think that's the reason.
Like, it's creepier when the voice is disembodied. It just is.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? And also, now I could potentially meet them and form a positive opinion of them before learning that they were in this movie.
Yeah,
right?
It's much easier for us to sit here and be like, they're so crazy because I've never seen their face.
That's right.
They're not really a human to me yet.
They might literally live in the apartment next door to you, Will.
Yeah, it's true.
That's right.
All right.
And unless they're like licking the blade of a machete as you're talking to them, it's tough to get that. Like, it's tough to, when you see somebody, there is some sort of connection made. Also, so I'm just glad they did it the way they did it, because it really played up the crazy.
Yeah. Well, Will, it has been an absolute joy having you on the show.
Yes.
And we will have you back.
It's true.
And I think kind of the way it'll work is we'll talk and check in with you, but I mean, it'll really be like you want to let us know what you want to talk about, because we're kind of game for whatever.
It's true.
And we'll talk about we'll be left to our own devices all day long. So when you feel like you got something you want to talk about, you just let me know, and we'll just have you on the show. I mean, it's
awesome. All right,
it's a blast.
I'll be on the lookout for the next time I see a really weird, creepy documentary.
Well, it could also be something else. Well, it could be something semi-normal.
It could be something less.
And please let us know when you're finished with the documentary, and we'll plug it to our millions of listeners and make sure they know about it, and that'll help. But we'd love to know about the progress on that, and we'll be able to do what we can to support that.
Yeah.
Sure. Great.
Thanks so much, Will. This is great.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, that was, woo!
That was so choice.
Seriously, if you have a means to pick one up, and by that I mean a Will Clegg, I highly recommend it. Ladies, he's taken. I was there when it happened. And we're going to move right on to, we're going to only have one mailbag question, but Andy, it's a doozy of a question.
It is a doozy. It's not a doozy.
It's actually a friend of us asking a question based on a question someone else asked someone else.
Yes,
It's like
it's
very
meta.
It's a mailbag's mailbag. It's like when John Malkovich goes into John Malkovich's own head.
Mailbag?
That's what this mailbag is like.
Mailbag.
Funny enough, my answer to the question is mailbag. So
Right, mailbag. So mailbag next week. Bye.
exactly.
Okay. This comes to us secondhand, or third hand as the case may be, from Bobby Gottfried. Hello, Bobby.
Hello, Bobby. Miss ya.
So this is from one of the people. I don't know if I can say favorite, but certainly one of the people that Phil and I follow the most online is Bill Simmons. He writes for Grantland and ESPN.com, and he's a sports guy. In fact, his handle is The Sports Guy, and he's funny and pop culture-y and sportsy, and so
I actually don't really follow him anymore because he doesn't really write anymore.
That's fair.
But the website he's created is a website that you and I both enjoy thoroughly.
Yes, Grantland.com.
There you go.
But every once in a while he'll do a mailbag, and here we go. This was in. Okay, so Bobby sent us this and basically just asked, like, what do you think of this? So this is a question that showed up in Bill Simmons' mailbag. I don't want to badmouth Midnight Run. Okay, the movie Midnight Run, the amazing, spectacular...
Or should you?
Right. I don't want to badmouth Midnight Run, but to claim no movie used more F-bombs more effectively than Midnight Run took me aback. Have you not seen The Big Lebowski? And it's from somebody in Missouri, because the middle of the country wants to know. And Bill Simmons' response, still haven't seen that movie. My buddy Gus believes everyone should have one movie that you've never seen, just because it infuriates and perplexes everyone you know that you haven't seen it. His movie is E.T. He's never seen it. This infuriates and perplexes me. For me, it's Rabowski, or Lebowski. Is it Rabowski or Lebowski? I wouldn't know, because I've never seen it. And Bobby asks us to discuss his answer, not really the question. So there are two things going on here. His answer would be, should there be a movie that you haven't seen, or is there a movie you haven't seen that infuriates people, blah, blah, blah. That is actually, now that I have seen The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2, I'm sure I could come up with a movie that you would be like, how have you not seen that movie? But I'm honestly more interested, and we could discuss both, of course, I'm more interested in the F-bomb question.
I'm more interested in the idea of what it means to choose not to see a certain movie.
Fair. Okay.
So, but we'll talk about both. I'm ready to talk about both because there are few things I care more about than the F word. I understand. People don't know that. Well, actually, a lot of people know that about me, but people who only know us by the podcast may not know that. But it's something I have a lot of respect for. Sure. In its uses and its various uses and meanings, it is a special place in my heart. But let's start with one of my best friends in the world, his name is Wes. And for many, many years, Wes refused to see Dances with Wolves because it beat Goodfellas for Best Picture in 1990. Okay. And he just flat out refused. He ended up watching it for a girl. I don't approve of that at all.
I don't either. A good friend of ours.
Really,
I'm gonna interrupt you because a good friend of ours had never. He's a very picky eater, and I know that sounds weird, but like he had his first grape when he was in college, and it was for a girl.
Okay. Well, college is a time when you do those things.
Right. Like when girls have a strange
right.
power.
Like my friend Wes literally made it till like 2004 before he saw. No, I'm serious. And like me being like, let's just watch it. And he's just like, no, I don't watch that movie. See, I think Simmons' answer is well, actually, I don't even think it's that funny. Him like, oh, I don't know how it's pronounced because I've never seen it. I love The Big Lebowski, but I do think that it's got this weird reputation as like the best Coen Brothers movie, and it's like its reputation has grown based on it's got got a cult following in pop culture that is really fascinating to me.
Yes. Lebowski Fest and stuff like that.
That being said, yeah, and almost like loved for the wrong reasons.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yep.
That being said, the Coen brothers are in a virtual tie for my favorite filmmakers of all time. And I don't... Like, I think Bill Simmons' taste in most pop cultural stuff is actually fairly questionable anyway. Like, I disagree with him about a lot of things quite often, but that's fine.
Right.
That means he would disagree with me. We're two different people. But I find his taste rather questionable quite often. Mm-hmm. And, like, he's one of those guys who thinks Pearl Jam is really great. I don't know. But anyways, and, like, hasn't been able to stop talking about Bruce Springsteen. He hasn't been able to stop talking about Bruce Springsteen for, like, 30 years. But anyways, my point is...
Which is weird because he's not from Jersey. But go ahead.
I know he's from Boston. You should know better.
I know.
But my point is, and he's one of those guys who talks about like Boston in this one particular way, but he's never leaving Southern California, ever.
No, that's
so. But all that aside, I find it despicable for someone to, on principle, not watch a Coen Brothers movie. Like, if you on principle didn't want to watch Midnight Run, I'd still think that was stupid. Because it's become more and more like one of the greatest movies of the 80s, actually. I think it's like grown in stature.
Agreed.
And is one of those movies like when we were talking about The Full Monty the other day, where it's a comedy that is also just a really good movie.
Yep.
But it's also like a movie made by a guy that hasn't made any other really good movies. And like it's like almost like a flash in the pan for that guy.
Sure.
But to choose not to watch one of the best movies that one of the best filmmaking people... group, whatever, one, because they're one mind, the Coen hive mind, like, would choose...
Don't tell Frances McDormand that.
I know, she'll be fine. To choose not, like, she of all people doesn't know that, right? To choose not to, I feel like she meant to marry Ethan, and then like Jacob meant to marry Rachel. And then
Leia's under the veil.
And so and Daddy Coen was like, "Do you think I'd really marry Ethan before I married off Joel?" And she was like, "Oh well," you know. And Joel's like, "Don't worry, you'll see Ethan all the time. It's all good."
Right, 7 years from now, you can marry him.
Right, it'll all work out. So, anyways,
it's a little biblical humor for you, Second Breakfast Nation. A little biblical humor.
And if you didn't get it, go to church or temple
or synagogue. Either
that
one, either way.
See, I'm diverse. My point is this: to choose not to see a Coen Brothers movie is just stupid. It's just stupid. I get that sort of like, I'm not going to watch that because it'll make other people angry. But I'm also kind of like, yeah, but at some point, the people that you're making angry are people who have better taste than you.
That's well said. But I wonder if
I'm not like there's a piece of me that's never going to watch Doctor Who, but I don't mind pissing off the people that's going to piss off.
That includes Daniel Carlson.
You know, look, and I love Daniel Carlson. But he can't be right about everything.
And he's right about so much.
Someone who has that many selfies with cats has a ways to go before he earns like flawless
omnipotence.
Stats.
Yeah, no, that's
right. Yeah.
Or omniscience. Yeah. Or opinions. Yes.
Omnipotence.
So I wonder if I can refocus you because I agree with everything you said, but that's not actually the comparison that the sports guy that Bill Simmons sets up. It's not Midnight Run versus Lebowski. It's
No, I know. It's just Lebowski as a movie that you would choose not to watch. And I'm saying to choose that movie as well.
Yes. But he does set up a comparison, and the comparison is his friend has never seen E.T.
Right. No, you're right. That's a fair point. And
I don't say that to invalidate everything you said because
that's actually really helpful. That's really helpful because your point is he's not invalidating the idea that Lebowski may actually be a legitimate classic.
Right. That's true.
My problem with it is this: if you like movies, why would you not see a legitimate classic? And if you like movies, and here's the thing about both E.T. and Lebowski, it's not a legitimate classic like D.W. Griffith's Intolerance is a legitimate classic. E.T. and Big Lebowski are both ridiculously entertaining movies.
Right.
Why would you not want to see a ridiculously entertaining movie that helped define a generation? Get your life together.
Right. You know what you did for the past hour and 45 minutes? something less fun than either of those movies.
Right.
Whatever it was.
That's my point.
Yeah, no,
that's my
a good
point. Now, okay, so that's all I have to say about that. We can talk about the F-bomb unless you have something to say about that.
I don't really. I think just there I'm feeling very taciturn today, Phil, and I think I've said my piece on that particular.
We need to send this. Okay, I think you have two. We have two. I think you're on notice, Simmons, the guy who will never watch this and who has many better things to do.
Yes, like watching The Big Lebowski.
Not writing any columns anymore.
That's true.
Now he does this like mailbag football point pick thing that's
Phil,
like a hybrid that I don't. Sorry, go ahead.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem with what you're saying right now. I want to get paid for doing work. I really do, right? But if I get to a point in my career where I can then get paid for not doing work,
Andy, well said.
Enough
said.
Enough said. I want to put in the work. I want to put in the time. But let's be honest. Okay, so we
clearly have respect for the guy because we read the website he created.
It's true. So let's talk about, purely in terms of the F-bomb, which is a more effective use case, if you will, a more effective movie with it. Would it be Big Lebowski, F-bombapalooza, or Midnight Run?
Do I have to choose one like Gauntlet style? Is that what you're asking?
No, I can choose, but I'm also choosing just for right now in the moment, and if I were to see one or the other, it might flip my answer. But no, you don't have to choose.
Go first.
I think it's Midnight Run for me, and the reason might be as simple as I saw Midnight Run first. And it was profanity used as poetry and punctuation and percussion and ammunition like I have never seen outside of Tarantino and David Mamet.
Wow. I might agree with you about your choice, but for different reasons.
I can't wait. Say more.
Say more. I will. Okay. Again, Lebowski's fantastic. Coen Brothers are fantastic.
Yes.
I love them. One of the things that I loves, the Coen Brothers.
To finish when I eat my spinach. Go ahead.
They're beautifully stylized.
Yes.
They do different styles.
Yes.
Tarantino's style is almost all the same, but he's beautifully stylized.
Agreed.
And both of them use the F word in a way that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. I would compare Midnight Run's use of the F word not to either of those movies, or to Mamet, who's about as stylistic as they get.
It's true.
I'd probably compare it closer to something like what Scorsese does with Goodfellas and Casino.
Nice.
Where it's a straightforward portrayal of people who just say the F word a lot.
Right.
Because when you say the F word a lot, you end up using it creatively. It ends up being a normal thing. So to me, I love Midnight Run's use of the F word because it's like normal people. As much as Big Lebowski is set in the real world, there is clearly several surreal aspects
it's
to
not
it. That's
the real world. Yes.
Right. It's like something between here where we are now and like a Magritte painting. It's not full on Magritte, right, but it's not full on here. Midnight Run lives in the land, and I'd actually put Goodfellas, by the way. I'd put Goodfellas right up there with Midnight Run in creative uses, humorous uses for the F word.
I'd like to clarify my answer because I agree with you. It's not that it. I think that in a very real way. Everything I stand by everything I said. You know, it's poetry, it's percussion, but not in a stylized way. It's like totally realistic, and
right.
I love your point. Like, you know, when you're a dude who uses the F-bomb a lot, you're gonna figure out ways to use it creatively because you don't want to get bored with your own speech. That's how we develop our own vocal and speech pattern idiosyncrasies. Although I have no idea. I mean, I don't have any. So yeah, but I think it almost elevates it. I think it almost elevates it, like, while staying realistic. Like, it is. That's how good it is. It is good to the level of, like, we're like, Lolita is written in prose, but it's basically poetry, right? Which also isn't a perfect analogy, because
no, but I get what you're saying. It's so stylized, but that's what I love about Midnight Run is it's just a straightforward movie.
Yep.
That happens to be funny, or feels like it happens to be. It is funny on purpose.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be. That movie could have been told as a straightforward drama.
Yep.
The drama is dramatic. The suspense is suspenseful. The action is well done. But in the end, it's all a comedy.
Yes.
And it's super funny.
Yes.
And it has the only Danny Elfman score ever that doesn't sound like a Danny Elfman score. It's the only Danny Elfman score that doesn't go la 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 la.
I love it.
It's like it sounds totally different. It's pretty great.
Nice.
So I respect that. I love. You know what I realized though? I realized as we're answering this, I love the way that Simmons doesn't answer the question, and here's why. Because I don't like the whole like. You always say that Midnight Run is the best use of the F word, but isn't it really this movie? Obviously, he doesn't think so. Like,
right?
It's just dumb. Like, it's like to me, stuff like that. It's like, well, actually, the better version is this. Well, not to Bill Simmons, it isn't. Like, like if every single time I'm like, Pulp Fiction's the best movie ever. If like someone just wrote to me and was like, by the way, do you really think Pulp Fiction is the best movie ever? Haven't you ever seen blankety blank? I'd be like. I mean, yes, unless I haven't. But either way, like Pulp Fiction's my favorite movie. Shut up.
Right. It's like you finally cracked my code. I've been waiting for someone to ask me about Midnight Run in this precise way because I've been lying for 20 years on the internet.
Just like I lied about faking the moon landing, and I'm going to secretly apologize about it.
That's right. That's right. Clearly, it was the moon landing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's our deal.
That's our deal. I think that'll do it for the week. Yeah.
Good question, Bobby Gottfried. Sorry it took us so long.
Yeah.
Wait, great way to steal the question from someone else. That's a very weird. I feel dirty answering someone else's mailbag.
Well,
it's not a federal offense, but
do you feel dirty taking so long to answer Bobby's question when we also haven't done his sports themed gauntlet yet?
Can I finish? Can I finish?
I don't know. Give it a try.
Bobby Gottfried, I want you to know something. And world, Andy has outed me. I was. This must have been what it felt like to be some gay dude who got everybody told. I don't know. I don't remember who's been outed. I just know that I feel like that right now.
Great.
Who's the famous person?
I'm sure they feel your pain.
I feel like Rock Hudson. Here's the deal.
I can't believe Liberace was gay. Women loved him. I didn't see that coming.
Shocking. I have been trying to... Bobby Gottfried and his friend, somebody, created a gauntlet. Was it Frodo?
Yes.
Created a gauntlet that was so... It was a sports movie gauntlet. And it highlighted just how sports movie illiterate I am. And so I have taken to trying to see all of the movies listed so I can actually undertake this gauntlet in an educated way. 2 weeks ago, I watched Miracle, which was on the list. Mm-hmm. I have the list of movies I haven't seen. I am making my way through it. I haven't been diligent about it. I've been about as diligent about that as I have been about my diet. But I'm working on it. But much like my diet, Bobby Gottfried and John Frodella, who's also on a diet, I'm working on it. I'm trying, okay? So it's about progress, not perfection. We will do the sports gauntlet sometime between now and spring training.
Phil?
Andy, go. Yes.
It's not... That was not the one that Frodo helped with. That was a different gauntlet. That we actually did. We've actually done...
Well, no, I just assumed that they partnered up on all their gauntlets. That was my assumption.
I don't believe that... Frodo, let us know. Did you help with this gauntlet? Bobby,
or more importantly, Gottfried, if you're doing gauntlets without Frodo, what are you doing?
Well, doing things that you're having trouble meeting the challenge of, I think, is the answer to that. Tough guy.
Maybe I would have had the trouble if he had had a little help from Jonathan Fidella.
We're pretty much just killing time because we don't want to say goodbye to you. Second breakfast.
I love you all. Have a great weekend. Yeah. Go see Ka-Ching Fire and go see. I'm gonna go see Delivery Man if I can. Nice. I don't know. We'll see.
I like it. And happy weekend before Thanksgiving.
That's a nice thing to say.
You know, because like, does it feel like Thanksgiving is late this year?
Did you know that Thanksgiving is late and Hanukkah is early, and this is the last time that Thanksgiving and Hanukkah will be on the same day for 40,000 years?
It's something insane. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I hope I'm around for the next one.
Me too. Yes. I'm pumped for Hanukkah this year, man. I'm pumped.
Good.
Yeah, the first time since I was like too young to shave. I'm pumped.
All right.
And
well, there you go.
And that's when I start going to play some dreidel. You know, I actually probably won't.
Wrap it up.
Danny, wrap it up. And with that, folks, this will bring us to the end of Second Breakfast Podcast for the week. We hope you've had as much fun as watching us as we've had doing it. You haven't. We've had more fun. But maybe next week you'll catch up. You won't.
Yep.
Until then, we are Second Breakfast. I'm Andy Roth, and that's Phil Duvall. Bye, everybody.
Bye now.
The most important meal of the day. Second